Hey everyone, this is Alan here. I'm a registered mentor for the Oxford Brookes University as well as a faculty member for the multiple professional courses in various organizations. So basically, this video is intended for the purpose of getting a good job role for every potential candidates. Well, we know that everybody is working hard. Everybody is working hard to attain a good job role. From the childhood onwards, everyone might have spent significant time, significant part of their life for the purpose of getting a good job role. Especially from the childhood onwards, everyone have done their schooling for almost 14 years. In addition to that, they might have some graduation as well as post-graduation qualification. Plus, they might also have completed their professional qualification. And all these years have been done mainly for getting a good job role and a career prospects in life. However, even after spending all these years for the purpose of getting the qualifications, nobody is actually willing much to spend time on preparing well for their interview. So that makes difficult for every candidate to crack the interviews. So even after attaining the most difficult professional qualifications also, many find it difficult to attain the interviews. However, the only point that you have to keep in mind is the fact that in case if you have done very much practice for getting a good qualification, then definitely you have to practice and prepare well for your interview as well. And as the first phase of interview, it is very important to prepare CV. So basically when it comes to your CV, it is the first phase that shows about you and tells about you, who you are and what qualifications you possess and what are the skills and other expertise you have. And all this will be specified within your CV. So you should be preparing a good CV for the purpose of attracting a potential employer. So if the employer have to be attracted by your CV, it should be prepared properly according to how he wishes to see your CV. So whenever you prepare a CV, you have to plan properly. You have to plan properly about what have to be included within the CV and how the CV have to be structured. Only after having a clear planning on how to create a CV will benefit you in creating the most effective CV that will be adequately be enough to attract a potential new employer. And again, you must always think from the part of an employer or from the reader's point of view. So you should not create something that you feels fit, but you should clearly include whatever be there in the CV should be clearly be included on the basis of what a reader expects from your end. So if you're applying for a specific job role, definitely you have to prepare the CV specific in relation to what you are applying for. And again, you should not make a very lengthy CV. Basically, the CV should be adequately be enough to cover everything about you, which includes your professional qualification, your skills, your experience, your contact details and other things. But it should not be more than 2 pages. It should be adequately be enough, but at the same time, it should be concise. And in addition to that, you must always be having good understanding on applicant tracking system. Many of the candidates used to tell everyone that they have applied for multiple job role, but they are not getting called by anyone. And the main reason for that is the applicant tracking system. The applicant tracking system is a software which is being used by almost all the employers. It's mainly because, well, we know that when a particular employer is making an opening for a job role, there will be a lot of people who will be applying for that particular job role, even if they do not have that required qualifications. So it will be very difficult for the employer to go through each CV and check whether it meets the requirements. So instead they use this applicant tracking system or the softwares whereby the employer will be uploading the keywords or the requirements within that particular software. And when you upload a CV, the CVs will be directly be uploaded into the application tracking system or the softwares. And this software will filter the CV automatically on the basis of the skills or whatever be the requirements that the employer have specified. So your CV will be matched with that of the criteria that the employer provide, and your CV will be automatically be accepted or rejected on the basis of your attainments. So mainly you have to understand one thing. Whenever you prepare a CV, it should be in a readable format. you should never include images or other things within a CV, which will make it difficult for the ATS software to read your content. And whenever you include some content, you should never use the tables and other related formats which might be difficult for the ATS software to track. So this is the major reason why majority of your CV scores rejected. So these are the major factors that you have to consider while preparing a proper CV. Well, now we are going to discuss on how a CV have to be properly structured and all the things that have to be included within the CV. And well, this video is purely be based on the requirements or the suggestions that have been provided by the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants or the ACCA. ACCA have listed a proper standard structure for creating a CV. So we will be following the same standard structure and we'll be discussing on what have to be included within a CV and what have to be avoided. So let's start with it. So the first thing that you have to include as part of your CV is the contact details and the personal information. So well, we know that we will be providing the CV to the employer and definitely they have to contact us back by looking at your CV. So it should be having adequate information for the purpose of contacting you back. So you have to provide a valid contact details and personal information if required. Then definitely there will be a question on what have to be included as part of your contact details. Ensure one thing that you have to make the things very simple. Keep it simple in a way that you should not include multiple contact number and email IDs, which might make them a bit confused on which number they have to contact you back. So provide only one valid email ID and one valid telephone number. And when you include an email ID, ensure that you are providing a valid and formal email ID rather than including alanrockies@gmail.com in case if I'm a fan of Rocky Bhai. Instead, you have to provide a proper formal email ID with your name. And again, when you include the contact number, ensure that you are including a contact number with country code. Especially in case if you're applying for an overseas job, if you have got an overseas number, then definitely you have to include that. But ensure one thing that it should also be valid. So in a way that in case if they have contacted in that number, you must be able to pick that. And again, when you include your postal address, so is it actually required to include the postal address? Well, the answer is it depends. So there are cases where you have to include your postal address. At the same time, there are also situations where you have to avoid that. Say for example, in case if you're applying for a local job, maybe within your same city, or if the employer have actually demanded for an employee from the same town, in that case, you can definitely provide your postal address within the CV. But consider that if you're applying for an overseas job and you're applying for the job from India, there is no point of providing your local Indian postal address because it is not valid. So include the postal address only if the employer demands or if it is actually required for the post you are applying for. And again, your LinkedIn profile. Well, we know that every employer is very much interested to look into your LinkedIn profile because they will easily be able to understand about your interests as well as your other certifications and professional qualifications that you have. So when you include the LinkedIn profile, include it only if it is up to date. So consider that if you have created a LinkedIn profile back 5 years and you haven't uploaded or updated anything within your LinkedIn profile, then there is no point of providing the same link within your CV. So include if it is only valid and if the LinkedIn profile is adequate enough to attract your employer. Then again, your personal information. So you have to understand one thing very clearly, that the employer will be providing you with a job opening only if your qualification and your experience demands it. And it will never be based on your marital status or your nationality or your gender or your ethnicity, nothing. So consider avoiding all these irrelevant things and include only what is valid and what it is actually required. So you can avoid including all this sort of personal information or the personal details. Then the main question, where you have to include your contact details. So the contact details have to be included at the top of the CV. So after providing your name at the top with the qualification that you have, immediately following your name, you can include your contact number and the email ID. So this is how you have to place the personal information and the contact details, out of which I have already mentioned the fact that it is not required to include the personal information. You can completely avoid that, and you only need to include the personal details. And in case if the situation demands, you can also definitely include your postal address as well. So this is the first thing that you have to consider while preparing your CV. And the next one, writing a compelling professional profile. So when you include the professional profile, ensure one thing, that it should be adequately be enough for the employer to clearly understand about the fact that you will be a valuable resource for them in future. So you have to include all the details, all the information within your professional profile in order to make them aware about this fact. But when you include all of this, ensure that it should never be the summary of whatever experiences that you have. Instead, you should clearly specify about the skills as well as the expertise that you have, and the way in which you will be able to use this for the purpose of achieving the objectives of the entity in which you are applying for your job. Or at least you must clearly specify about how you're going to use this expertise and experience for the purpose of achieving the job roles in which you are applying for. And again, when you include the positioning statement, always, as I already specified, it should be a forward looking statement. So you should provide the first sentence with the job role you are applying for. Suppose consider that you are an experienced auditor and you are applying for an internal audit job role. Then you can clearly include a statement starting that an experienced internal auditor with over 5 years of experience in the field of blah blah blah, seeking to apply for the job role as an audit manager and blah blah blah. This is how you have to start with the first sentence. So literally, which means that you must be able to grab the attention of the reader. Again, whenever you include your professional profile, it should not be a story. Instead, it should be a clear statement with maximum of 4 to 5 lines. And especially, you must clearly focus on describing the scope of your expertise and the individual strength that you have. And always you have to align the skills that you actually have, and you should never include anything which is not actual or real. And again, when it comes to your professional profile, you should not create a generic professional profile which you can use for every job role or for every job for which you are applying for. Instead, you have to create and make changes in the professional profile whenever you apply for each job. So for the purpose of applying for each job role, you must always keep on frequently updating the professional profile. So whenever you are applying for an internal auditor job role, you have to definitely change the professional profile accordingly. When you're applying for the job of an external auditor or the job of an accountant or the finance controller, you have to make changes in that. So it should not be a generic one. It should be a specific professional profile for the job you are applying for. And one more thing, you can also include a hint, a very helpful hint for the employer to understand about the qualification that you have. So suppose if you are applying for an internal auditor job role, and if you are already having experience as an internal auditor, then you can include that particular job title immediately after your name at the top of the CV. Say for example, so this will be the CV format that we will be using to create a new one. Basically, this particular CV format is being provided by ACCA. So immediately after including your name, you can include the job title here. So it will be a very easy hint for the employer to clearly understand about your experience or qualification. So you can include it immediately after your name. So this is how you have to create a professional profile. So here goes a professional profile. After including your name, job title, and the contact details, which include the telephonic number and the email ID, you can include a professional profile. So you will be clearly providing the reader about the job title you are applying for and the scope of your expertise that you have. And especially you can also mention about how you will be able to provide the employer with adequate services which will enable them to achieve whatever objectives that they have. And in addition to which, you can also include whatever things that can grab the attention of the reader. Especially you can include the main content in bold so that it will be very easy for the reader to clearly catch the attention of what you are actually trying to say to them. So this is how you have to include a professional profile. So we have discussed on how to include your contact details, and after that we have also clearly understood about how we need to include a professional profile. Then the main thing, the key skills section. So here you will be specifying about whatever be the skills that you have, and you can always include the actual skills that you have for the purpose of applying for this job role. So basically when it comes to the skills, definitely some of the employer might be preferring for an employee with a specific skill set. So in that case, definitely they will upload whatever skills that the employee is required to have within the applicant tracking system. So the applicant tracking system will be already having a set of skills that they prefer to have for the employee. And when you upload your CV, the applicant tracking system will cross-check the required skills with the skill set that you have included within your CV. And your CV will get selected if both matches each other, and will get rejected if your skills does not match with the actual skills that an employee should have in the job role you are applying for. So it is very important to understand what the skills that the employer demands. And easily you can get that information from the job posting. So when you get a job posting, especially in the ACCA career site and other websites, then they will be clearly specifying about the skills required as well as about the job responsibilities. So you have to include the skills which matches with the job responsibilities as well as the key skills that the employer demands. So in that case, your CV will be easily be selected for further proceeding, or else it will be rejected. Then the same thing, whatever have to be included as part of your skills. You can include whatever you want as skills, but only if it is relevant to the job role that you are applying for. So you can include all the technical and financial skills that you have in case if you are applying for that job. Or in case if you are applying for some other job, then definitely you have to clearly include all the skills that actually the employer require to have from your end. And again, where you have to include your skills. So you can include the skills immediately after your professional profile within the CV. So first of all, as we mentioned earlier, we'll be including the contact details and our name. And after that, we'll be including the professional profile. And immediately after that, you can include the skills that you have. And ensure one thing, that the skills should also not be generic. So you should not use the same CV to every employer. Instead, you have to update your CV on the basis of the job that you are applying for. And again, you have to update the skills that you have in relation to what job role you are applying for. Suppose consider that if an employer is demanding for a specific skill, and if you really believe that you have, and if it is relevant to the job role, you have to include it. And if it is not relevant, you have to omit it from your CV. Then, how you need to format it. Whenever you include the skills, you can either include it in columns, you can include it at bullet points, or in any manner that you want will be more presentable to the employer. However, always ensure one thing, you should not use the table formats or other type of format which will be difficult for the ATS software to read from your CV. So in case if the ATS software is not able to read the skills from your CV, then definitely when the ATS software compare your skills with that of the actual skills that are required to have for the employee, the match will be 0 and definitely your CV will be rejected. So avoid taking that risk. So you should not use the word table format. So if you use the word table format, it will not be read by the ATS software. And also ensure one thing, that your CV should not be in image format. If your CV is in image format, in that case also there can be chances that ATS will not read that. So always include whatever be including within the CV in a readable format. So this is what you have to mainly consider with regarding the skills that you have. Then the next one. So basically when it comes to the area of career history, well, we know that it is very important for the employer. And mainly it will be the decision making point for the employer. Because if you really have the experience that the employer is looking for, then you will be the best choice for the employer. Because the employer might not need to spend much time on following up the job role or whether you're carrying out your job activities properly, because you are already having skills and experience in that. So you have to include whatever be valid, and you have to include your actual experience. You should never provide a fake experience within this part. You should only provide valid and actual experience that you have in the past years, and especially emphasize more on the recent job roles that you have carried out. And moreover, you must specifically focus on the job role that is matching with the new job role that you are applying for. So you should clearly summarize about the job responsibilities that you have carried out in your past employments. And especially when you include the employment detail, every employment should clearly specify a story, which means that by reading at your experience, the employer will easily be able to understand. I mean, the new potential employer must be able to understand about the jobs that you have carried out in the past years, as well as the experience that you have in relation to that. And ensure one thing, that you should never copy paste a generic job role. Suppose consider that in the past years you might have applied for a job and you have actually got that, and you have got over 2 years of experience or 1 year of experience in that, and you already had a copy of the job description of the past job role in which you have applied and you have worked on, then you should never copy paste that directly in your CV. Rather than doing that, clearly summarize the actual job role that you have carried out within that particular job. So say for example, even if the employer have given a very lengthy and long description on the job responsibilities before getting appointed into that job role, even after getting appointed, the employee might not have carried out certain tasks which have already been specified in the job responsibilities. Instead, she might have got other new experience, or she might not have worked on some of the requirements. So in that case, you only want to specify about what you have actually carried out with the employer and the what actual experience that you have. So you should never copy paste a generic job description. And again, whenever you include your experience, ensure one thing, that you are including 3 main parts within the experience area. First thing, you have to clearly specify about the organization in which you have got experience. Again, you have to specify about the summary of whatever job roles that you have carried out. Again, if you have got any specific achievements while performing their job roles, then you can also include that. Again, above all this, you have to provide the period over which you have worked with that particular employer as well. You can just give the starting month and year as well as the closing date. And if you are also presently working with the same employer, then you have to include present at the end. So this is how you have to mainly include your job qualification or the prior experiences. All right. And the next one, it's a qualification membership and your professional development. And when it comes to this area, so the first thing that you have to consider is the qualifications that you have. So when you include the qualifications, you have to clearly specify about whatever qualifications that you have within this area, but ensure that you are including again only those qualifications that are relevant to the job role in which you are applying for. Then when you include your qualification, you have to provide the name of the qualification, type of qualification, as well as the name of the awarding body. Say for example, if a candidate have got a degree from the Oxford Brookes University, then BSc Honours in Applied Accounting will be the name of the qualification. Then graduation will be the type of qualification. Oxford Brookes University will be the awarding body. So this have to be clearly specified. However, it is not required to include the year in which you have actually attained or you have achieved that qualification, because well, we know that after a certain period none of the qualification might be expired. So it is not required to include the year in which you have achieved that qualification. Then in addition to the qualification, you can also include about the professional memberships that you have, especially like accounting qualifications of ACCA or ICAEW or ICAI. You can include any of these professional memberships. When you include the professional membership, specify the membership as well as the name of the awarding body. But again, ensure that you are including this membership details only if it is actually valid. Say for example, when it comes to the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants or the ACCA, they are required to have all their members to submit the continuous professional development requirements or the CPD requirements annually. In addition to that, every members have to pay annual subscription amount as well. And in case if any of the member have not followed this criteria, their name will be removed from the member list. Will never be able to call themselves as a member anymore. So they have to remove the membership from their CV. Again, well, we know that every professional will always be working towards achieving more goals. They will be definitely be striving to get more professional qualification to achieve their ultimate goals in their career. So whatever be the actual professional qualifications that you have attained, say for example, you might have done multiple diplomas, or you might be attended some of the other training or related programs in order to get more insight about the business world or about your qualification. Then in case if it is relevant to your job role, definitely you can include that as well. So whatever be the professional developmental activities that you have carried out, you can include the details regarding that in your CV. So this is how you have to include your professional qualification and other abilities. And finally, when it comes to an overall CV structure, well, it's a summary of whatever be the things that we discussed just now. So first of all, you have to include your name. Immediately after your name in your CV, you have to include your job role. So for example, whatever be the job role you are applying for, or if you are a fresher, then you can include the title like ACCA affiliate or CA qualified or whatever you want. Then include the contact details. And immediately after that, you have to include the professional profile. Then you have to include whatever be the key skills that you have that have been included immediately after the professional profile. Then your career history, then professional development and education. So this is how you will be including within an overall CV structure. So I will be including the link to this particular file within the description part. So you can just click on the link in the description of this video and you can get access to this same template. So this template is being provided by the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. And as I've already mentioned, this particular video is fully be prepared on the basis of the recommendations that have been provided in the ACCA's website for the purpose of preparing a quality CV. So you can follow this format. Well, this particular file is in editable format. So you can use the same file and you can edit it and you can use it accordingly. And you have to ensure one thing, it should be tailor-made. You should be creating separate CV for each job role for which you are applying for. So as it's specified over here, you can include your name over here, and after that you can include the job title in which you are applying for, telephone and email IDs have to be included, professional profile have to be provided, then key skills, then the career history can be given one by one, and after that you can include whatever be the professional developmental activities that you have attained. Then finally you have to give the education and ensure one thing that, as we already specified, the CV should not be much lengthy. It should be limited within 2 pages. And again, it is not required to provide your image or your photograph within your CV. So these are the whole requirements that you have to do with regarding preparing a proper CV for the purpose of attaining a good job role. So once the CV is prepared, half part is done. So a good CV will be the first phase or the first thing that is required for an employer to get attracted. So once a CV is prepared, you have to properly prepare for a job role and you have to clearly understand about the job role before applying for that, because it will make you enable about understanding how you need to attend that particular interview or what the employer actually demands from your end. So as I already specified in the beginning of this video, every student used to spend too much time for the purpose of attaining a qualification. And everyone's ultimate objective of achieving a qualification is to get a good job role. So you must also be specific enough to prepare properly for your interviews. So understand the job role in which you are applying for, and on the basis of your understanding, prepare properly for the interview. And again, prepare a CV in accordance with what the employer is actually looking to. So your CV should be adequately be enough to attract the attention of the reader. So it should be clearly specific to the job role you are applying for. And again, in addition to the CV, it is very important to have a covering letter. A covering letter should also be prepared when you are applying for a job. So a detailed discussion of covering letter will be there in my next video. So please do check my channel for the next video on covering letter. So all the very best everyone. Do prepare well for your interviews and attain good job roles. All the very best. God bless you.